Before we jump in, a quick reminder that we publish our premium podcast, 19 Minutes, 3 times a month on the 9th, 19th, and 29th. It's a short, focused update designed to help you think ahead and make faster, clearer decisions. You can subscribe using the link in the description. Thanks.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the AgView Pitch. Today, we are going to talk SDRP and some of the government things that are going on right now, some confusion, some facts, some fiction, and some factors, I guess you could say. We've got Paul Neiffer with us today. Paul, how's it going?
It is going good. I actually flew home from, my old home. I was in Washington State. I went out to my ranch yesterday and drove by my wheat field and flew home this morning. So getting caught up. You know how that is when you're gone.
Yeah, I do. You come home and see if there's any wood. It looks like you got some wood on your desk there behind you, so you don't have a ton of stuff that's stacked up on you.
No, well, I'm pretty much paperless, so
yeah.
that's,
I gotta learn to do that. I got papers all over the place.
I got my little. You can't see my scanner, but I got my little scanner over here. So anything that's paper related, I scan it in if I need to save it. So
gotcha. I got files everywhere, so
yeah.
I'll have to learn from you on that, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's get started on this fun conversation around SDRP. First of all, I'm pretty sure that 95% of the people that listen know what that acronym stands for, but we have this alphabet soup of letters in all of the stuff that is related to the government being involved in agriculture.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what SDRP is to start with and why it's there.
So it's the Supplemental Disaster Relief Program, and it was brought about back at the end of 2024 in conjunction with the $10 billion that was set aside for ECAP, which everybody's been paid that. There was another 16.1 billion. I'm rounding it 16.09, but let's just round it to 16. It's easier to say 16 billion. So there was 16 billion that is being allocated to fund SDRP Stage 1 and Stage 2. Now, under Stage 1, they've already paid out about 5.7 almost, let's round it to 5.8 billion. Under Stage 2, they're projecting that they're going to pay about 2.7 billion. So if we take 5.8 billion and add 2.7 billion to it, we get 8.5 billion. So I'm sort of letting you know what I think is going to happen once. And they've extended they never had a deadline for Stage 1. The deadline now for Stage 1 and Stage 2 is April 30th.
Of 2026.
Of 2026. So any extra money you're going to get under Stage 1 is going to come after April 30th. So don't be thinking we're going to get extra money in January, February, March, or April. RMA did a webinar earlier this week, already came out and said money's going to go out after April 30th. Now they may change their mind. Also remember, we have a payment limit for 23. So this 16 billion is for 23 and 24. Now it's not 8 billion in 23 and 8 billion in 24. It just simply says 16 billion is allocated for 23 and 24. The payment limit for the corn and soybean growers on here is 125,000 per person or per legal entity. So a C Corp, S Corp, LLC, they're going to have a $125,000 limit, even if there's 4 or 5 owners. If you're a general partnership, there still might be a payment limit even for general partnerships because they're treating those as a legal entity too, I guess, if I remember right. So you got that $125,000 limit. Now, if more than 75% of your adjusted gross income is from farming, then that doubles. So it's 250. So if you qualify for the maximum, that means you can collect 250,000 in 23, 250,000 in 24. But you can't collect 250,000 on Stage 1 and 250,000 on Stage 2 in 23 or 24. It's 250 total for Stage 1 and 2 per year. So I've gotten that question so many times that even though I mentioned in the blog like 5 different times, it just I just got to reinforce.
Good to clarify. Yeah.
So the key is that if we are at that 8.5 billion, so if we take 5.8 plus 2.7, that's 8.5 billion. And we got a total of 16 billion. That means there's about another 7.5 billion that's going to be paid between stage 1 and stage 2 in what I call a top up. Now, if you do the calculation on that, that's another 30%. So in total, potentially we should get 65% of the disaster. And then remember, ECAP was supposed to pay about 35% of the disaster for 24. So potentially for 24, we're quote made whole. Now we're going to have payment limits, and if you're a larger producer, you're not going to be made whole. But those are the numbers. I mean, well, I always forget the name. It's the final rule. So the SDRP final rule for stage 2, right in there, they project we are going to pay 2.7 billion for this go round of a stage 2. And then on their dashboard, which was, and it might even be effective as of today, we could actually take a look at it, but it hasn't changed much in 2 months. It's at about 5.75 billion. So that's sort of giving you an idea how much more money likely will show up if you collected under stage 1. Let's say you collected $80,000 under the top up. I would think you might collect another 65,000, just as an example.
So I'm not real good with math, but you said, if I subtract the numbers, it sounds like there's about 3 billion left over when they get done with the second round.
No.
Or did I misunderstand what you're saying?
So 5.8 billion on stage 1, that's what's been paid out. 2.7 billion is what they expect to pay out in stage 2.
Okay.
So if we add those two numbers together, that's 8.5 billion.
Gotcha.
We got 16 total, so there's 7.5 billion still to be paid out.
Okay. So what is there a likelihood, or maybe not likelihood's the right word, is there a possibility that there's going to be funds remaining that gets paid back out, where they come back out and they clean up that payment because they're going to pay all those dollars out, right?
Yeah. So they're going to, if they pay out, let's say they pay out 9 billion, just round it up to 9 billion, because you still can refile for stage 1 for quality loss. So remember, your first payment was just based on crop insurance. If you had revenue, basically revenue. If you had dockage for low test weight, if you had high protein or low protein for wheat, any type of excessive dockage or damage related to a weather event, a qualifying weather event, you can go back and get a top up on stage 1 right now. And I was actually meeting with my cousin yesterday, and on 2 of his crops, he's able to go back in because he had some damage on wheat and garbs, or garbanzo beans, chickpeas, whatever you want to call it. So, and that's on stage 1. So top up for stage 1 and stage 2. Now let's talk about stage 2. Stage 2 is for those farmers. Well, let's back up a second. What we can see from stage 1, it was paid out based on revenue, basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got the advantage of the fact that the spring price, the projected price, was higher than the harvest price. So you collected on that. The stage 2 is yield only. I mean, if you go through the formulas and based on what the RMA said on their webinar on Thursday, it is yield only. So what that means is if your APH yield ends up being lower than your actual yield, you're not going to collect a dime. If it ends up being, so let's back up even more. Most of the people on here probably elected 80 or 85%. You would say probably most of them on here.
The majority, by far.
Okay. So at the 80 and 85% level, the new number, the what I call the SDRP number, is 95%. So if your APH is 200, 95% of 200 is what? 190?
Yep.
If your final yield is 190 or higher, you're not going to collect a dime under stage 2. So don't even waste your time. So we know, Chris, in 2024, we had a good crop and on our farm, my farm, the farm for me. I think most of the people not in Northwest Iowa, not in Southern Minnesota, not in the Dakotas, probably had a decent yield. There's other pockets that didn't have a good yield. So the key is for SDRP Stage 2, it is yield only. And I want to reinforce that. The only way that you can collect is that your final harvest yield was less than 95% of APH for 80 and 85% coverage. If you're at 75, it's 92.5. If you're at 70, it's at 90, and so on and so forth. But for most of us, it's at that 95% level.
So once that is accomplished, then how is the calculation done if there are remaining funds that yet need to be paid?
So what they'll do is they'll go back and on the blog, I actually posted on this on, I think it was yesterday. I sort of did a spreadsheet. So what they'll do, I think how I would do it, this is how I would do it. I would take the total funds that were paid out in Stage 1, total funds paid out in Stage 2, and let's just pretend like that's 9 million. And then we still got 7 million left to be funded. So they take the percentage. So if Stage 1 is 65% of total, they'd allocate 65% of the remaining 7 million to Stage 1, and then 35% to Stage 2. And then they'd go back and they would say, based on that, on Stage 1, we're going to top it up by 29%, something like that. Because remember, on ECAP, we got paid, what was it, 85%? I think it was 85%. And then they gave us 14%. So another 14%. So that's how they're going to do it. It'll be the exact same way.
Okay. So it's likely that, we were just talking like in my family's operation, they went in and it was zero for the second payment
for Stage 2.
So, and there's gonna be quite a few operations that are going to be that way purely because of the way the calculation on payment 2 is
because it's yield only.
Yeah,
yield
so
only.
it was highly likely if you collected on the first round, you probably didn't on the second round if your yield was decent at all.
Yep.
So, so it's likely there'll be more funds coming, but they're going to be correlated to the first stage
1.
Yep. Okay.
And you're not going to collect it until May or June of next year.
Right.
Which is frustrating because they authorized this December of 24. Most disaster programs take about 6 to 8, 10 months to get fully implemented.
Mm-hmm.
This is now, if it's June of next year, it's going to be 18 months to get the final payment.
What's causing the delays for all this stuff? I mean, obviously we had a shutdown, but I don't know what?
To me, they can't blame the shutdown. They were going to announce phase 2 before the shutdown happened.
Right.
Or the first week of the shutdown, they were going to announce it. So they should have had this all in place. They should have the training done. The local office, some of them still haven't even been trained.
Right.
So I don't want to sound, definitely don't want to come across as snarky. But the local offices are overworked. We know that even before they started people retiring, they were overworked, and then the people are left are undertrained. It's just, and then for them to switch from revenue based sort of under Stage 1 to being purely yield based on Stage 2, I'm not sure if that's fair. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are additional payments under Stage 2. So a lot of farmers don't have crop insurance. They just don't believe in it, but they had a qualifying weather event. They are still allowed to collect a payment under Stage 2. Now, there's a lot of paperwork involved in that. What I've heard, I talked to somebody from the Cotton Council on, I think, Thursday, and it appears that based on the RMA call, and I haven't had a chance to listen to that webinar yet, I need to do that they're going to they're not going to, unless you have a contract, if you don't have a contract, they're actually going to use the loan value, which for like cotton is like 42 cents versus like 65 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So their payment may be substantially lower than they were hoping for. So that's something that, especially for cotton growers and others that don't have crop insurance, they may not be getting as much, at least in the first go round, as they were thinking.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And it's interesting. I'm sure there'll be comments in the notes, frustrated that there's even any kind of government payments going out and stuff, and it's the tariffs and all this stuff. And as soon as I say that, we get D-rated or whatever it is,
Yeah.
on how the YouTube algorithm sends out. But I think I speak for a lot of producers. Most of us really don't want any of this crap.
Yep.
It's not
Yep.
just because of just for clarity, it's not just because of the tariffs. The tariffs are just icing on the cake, kind of. It's more the cost of production as we look at this with our farmers, and we look at 23, 24, because the issues kind of started financially in 23. They didn't start. They didn't start with this administration. They started in 23, 24. And now 25 in terms of inflation. We've had this massive inflationary impact. The commodity prices have come down, but the cost of production has stayed the same, and actually gone up from 23 to now, and it looks like 26 is pretty comparable. So with that said, I want to ask, is there anything else on SDRP that guys need to know? And I'm going to transition to a couple other quick questions here.
No, I think we've covered. I think the bottom line is, like I said, if your APH, if your final harvest yield is not less than 95% of your APH, then don't waste your time even doing the calculations. Now, I have a calculator, Chris, if you want to put it in the show notes, or people want to reach out to me. But if we'll
put a link.
Notes,
we'll put a link to your blog in the Mac. Put that in there. So, all right. The last couple of things. One is, like we just talked, the cash flows are pretty ugly on the row crop operations in particular, very ugly in some cases. And so when you look at the PLC and the ARC, we get the larger of the two for 2025.
Yep.
Do you have a calculator there? Are you anticipating anything? Is there any way to know anything, or are we just wild ass guessing right now on?
Well, it's because remember, the final numbers will be based on the final MYA price, the mid-year average price, and that may change up or down. FAPRI, no, let me back up. University of Illinois and the Farm Doc Daily came out with a couple reports within the last 2 weeks. So if people want to check that out, go to farmdocdaily.com, I think. I think it's .com.
Yeah.
And they projected based on and I'm going to give you rough numbers. I don't have them off the top. I have them off the top of my head, but I don't have the exact numbers, but it's pretty close. They project that PLC would pay, based on current prices, based on the November prices, we'll get updated prices here in next week. Mm-hmm. But based on the November prices, that PLC would pay about 5.5 billion. ARC would pay about 5 billion. So if you add those two numbers together, there's 10.5 billion. And then on top of it, we would get a bonus due to the fact that the higher of ARC or PLC is about another 3 billion. Mm-hmm. So they are projecting about 13.5 billion. Now, I ran the numbers, and based on, and I think their soybean number's too high, because based on their PLC number, it's about 3 times higher than the PLC acres times the payment. So I think their soybean number might be $1 billion high. When I ran the numbers, I was about 11.5 to 12 billion. So somewhere between 12 and 13.5 billion is what likely would be paid out next October. Now, that obviously is going to change because we don't know final yields. ARC is dependent on that final yield number. PLC is not dependent on that. So it's easy to calculate PLC. That's a pretty firm number, right? Because we have a national PLC yield and we know how many acres were enrolled in PLC. So it's a very easy number. The ARC is going to have that variability. Now, for most crops, Chris, PLC is going to pay the most,
right?
Unless somebody had a very, very bad final, unless the county yield was so low that ARC would kick in. Now, for corn and soybeans, no. Corn and soybeans, ARC right now, based on the prices, especially for corn, ARC is still a little bit higher than PLC. So that one's where we could get an extra 500 million or 1 billion or 1.5 billion of extra payments for those areas where yields were down. But remember, our final yield this year was what, according to USDA, 3 or 4% higher than the benchmark, maybe 5% higher. So
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. And that's why I say until June rolls around, when we get the final yield numbers, it's going to be difficult to really calculate what that ARC payment's going to be.
Yeah. And those payments don't come until like October of 26 anyway, right?
Well, there was a bill that was introduced before the shutdown that would allow farmers to accelerate half of the projected payment to December. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen. But with end of year reconciliation and bills and so on, there's a potential that they might slip something like that in where the farmer would have the option to elect to accelerate half of it in January or February. I could see that, or March. That was actually in the Senate proposal in 2024. They were going to let you elect to accelerate half of the estimated payment to March of the year. And that was going to be for the whole farm bill period. So, or maybe, no, that was just for 24 or 25.
Yeah. And from a tax standpoint, you can show that as income in 25, even though it comes in 26, if your return's not done right or not.
Well,
there's the opposite now is it used to be guys were trying to not take in as much income, and
now we want to report as much income.
Right. We're seeing people that are shy on income now.
It depends on when they come out with the program. If you can't elect to get it in 25, then you wouldn't be taxed in 25.
Gotcha.
And based on this being December 6th, as we tape this, there's no way it's going to get done in 2025.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's a good bridge to a bridge discussion I have for the last question for you.
Okay.
Is this administration's talked about a bridge payment or something to soften the revenue disparity due to tariffs or whatever. And if I say that word, now we're demonetized.
Well,
they shut us down.
Yeah, they de-emphasize tariffs right now. So
yeah. So anyway, like and subscribe, and then you can hear what we have to say. I guess what I would say is what's your thought on that, or have you heard anything, or are we?
Well,
is that possible yet in this year?
Yeah, what I read is, or for those, many of you probably get Jim Wiesmeyer's newsletter. If you don't, I would highly recommend subscribing to it. Wiesmeyer@gmail.com. Doing a plug for Jim. He came out on, I think, Friday and said that they're supposed to announce next week. Now, we've heard that about 5 weeks in a row, but because Trump wants to be part of the announcement, and I guess he's got time available next week, that they would announce a $12 to $14 billion package. Now, that would not all just be Title I crops. That would include specialty crops, because they've been hammered. You talk about, if you think corn and soybean are suffering, the fruit guys are getting hammered. And some of the nut guys.
And cotton
and rice and peanuts and so on.
So
12 to 14 billion supposed to be announced next week, would not be paid until January at the earliest. So it would not be paid in 25. Now, your senior senator Grassley and Jerry Moran from Kansas came out and said, we don't think USDA's got the funds to make that payment. So now, is that Trump taking some of the quote tariffs, again, don't scream at us, but take some of the tariff funds and use that to make that payment? Now, the problem with that is the maximum amount in the tariffs that under the current law, that can be used is about 300 million. So that's peanuts as far as support to farmers, ad hoc aid. So we'll see. That's what I've heard. But again, Chris, you and I have heard this for the last month. So we'll see.
Yeah. And that payment doesn't go against, because it's ad hoc, does not go against the limitation.
No, it's there'll be a separate payment limit, but it is not
correlated
ARC
to the standard.
Right. It doesn't affect your ARC PLC payment. It doesn't affect SDRP payment, and so on and so forth. Now, the payment limit for ARC and PLC was bumped up for the 25 crop to 155,000. Will they bump, because this would be a 25 program. Remember, ECAP was for 24, it wasn't for 25. So if this is a 25 program, maybe we're going to get an extra $30,000 bump in the payment limit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just highlight the word maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think this was enough alphabet soup. I'm kind of getting full. How about you?
I am well, and the thing that bugs me, well, not bugs me, but because I came up with a calculator earlier this week, and I was looking at their final rule example, and in the final rule example, they were using 100 acres of soybeans, and they were using the harvest price. So my original calculator was saying use the harvest price. Well, turns out, no, they're using the projected price. So why didn't you use that in your example? I mean,
Right.
And my calculator is 19 lines long just because I'm trying to make sure everybody understands where the numbers are coming from and so on. So,
right. Is that a calculator? Or, I mean, is there anything we want to make available that you want to get to Mac so that people want
I think what I'll do, just have them refer to the blog. I'm going to go back and take a couple of my blog posts, including the calculator that was behind my subscription wall, and I'm just going to make it free to everybody.
Okay. So we'll put a link to your podcast then.
And again, it's farmcpareport.com. So
Yep.
for those that, and a lot of people I think on this call probably already subscribe to it.
Right.
But I've had to email out the calculator, I think, to 150 people. So I'm getting tired of sending the emails. So they can just go to the blog.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Paul, as usual, this has been great. Probably another topic eventually we need to get to towards the end of the year, or even after get in January, is just kind of be talking about kind of finalizing the tax stuff and what we need to be thinking about doing tax returns and stuff.
I think you already said it for this year. We're not trying to eliminate taxes. We're trying to create enough taxable income so it looks better for the bank.
Exactly.
I mean, that's sort of the reality. So
right. Yeah. We're kind of in that boat, a lot of us anyway. So
yeah.
Well, hey, thanks a lot. Really appreciate your time today. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Chris.
You bet. And thanks everybody for listening. Again, like and subscribe so you can get, every time we're on here with Paul and having these conversations around government stuff. Seems like they're connected to agriculture, whether we like it or not. So with that said, thanks everybody. We'll catch you again next time on the Ag Group Pitch.